Welcome to HMG Live, a production of HMG Strategy, your global partner helping you reinvent the future of work. Home to the HMG Strategy Top Technology Executives to Watch Awards, and also offering the HMG Marketplace, a fast, easy, safe, and efficient way to connect with the right vendors for your technology needs.
We can't be together at these events, right? But I think the next best thing is being able to connect through the marketplace.
And now, a warm welcome to today's host, Lead Principal and CEO of HMG Strategy, Hunter Muller.
Good afternoon and welcome to the 2020 St. Louis CIO Executive Leadership Summit. I'm Hunter Muller, Lead Principal at HMG Strategy. My team and I are delighted to be here with you today and really grateful that we have this opportunity to spend a couple hours together with you today talking about leadership, talking about innovation, talking about major business disruption, reimagining and reinventing the customer journey, reimagining and reinventing business models. I think we pulled together today a genius, a brilliant program, a phenomenal program, a world-class summit for you all today. So stay right through to the end. At the very end, we'll be recognizing several of your own St. Louis tech leaders. And I'd like to bring Lisa Nichols up on the stage. Lisa's been an amazing executive, amazing business partner, a thought leader in our industry. And I know people love Lisa Nichols in St. Louis. Lisa, you're amazing. You're so fantastic. You really have been the lightning rod and the glue that's kept this summit so vital and so real for so long. Good to see you.
It's good to see you, Hunter. Always good to see you. We consider you a friend. Technology Partners and my husband, Greg, and I co-founded Technology Partners 26 years ago. And I just want to say, we attended our very first HMG CIO Summit in Dallas in 2013. And really after attending that summit and experiencing the high quality content and the robust, rich connections and conversations that we had, we truly believed that St. Louis could benefit from having our very own CIO Summit. And so I'm really proud to say that this is our 7th summit in St. Louis with Hunter and the HMG team. And truly, we are just as excited today as we were on that very first year of the summit. And I've said this so many times, but I truly believe this. Greg believes this. Technology Partners believes this, that St. Louis is really a special place. We have amazing, incredible companies here, and we have incredible leaders. And so for me, it is always a joy to showcase our great city and our technology leaders. And so that's what we're going to be doing today, and I could not be more excited. So Hunter, thank you and your team for just the amazing work that you guys are doing all over the globe for the technology space.
Excellent, Lisa. Great to see you. And I echo all those comments about St. Louis and working with you, Greg, the advisory board, and the conference chairs, and the other thought leaders that we have here today. Really a world-class agenda. So let's get rolling. I want to shout out to Mark Taylor. Mark's the CEO of SIM International. Mark, great to have you here today.
Hey, Hunter, great to be here as well. Great community in St. Louis. Our chapter there is a strong group of technology leaders, and just appreciate your continued investment in the community, as Lisa just said, through St. Louis as well as across the country. We just greatly appreciate your input and what you're doing to invest in the community, Hunter.
SIM's a great organization. I'm a member as well. Thank you, Mark.
You bet.
Bye now. So visit our marketplace, really some amazing companies, software, security solutions. These are companies that are really tier one, A1 companies that really suggest you take a look at in the marketplace. You dive in there, you poke in there, and you can learn about their thought leadership, case studies, as well as set up a meeting. As I mentioned, we have our top 2020 Tech Execs That Matter recognition program, a 12-year program that we've been running here at HMG Strategy, some 200 plus folks that we've highlighted over the years. It's a great way to get recognized. We're recognizing 3 people at the end of the summit today. I think we have a little video we're going to run.
Later in today's program, HMG Strategy founder and CEO Hunter Muller will proudly recognize and honor global technology executives who matter. These top-tier CIOs, CISOs, and other technology executives have genuinely distinguished themselves in business transformation, digital disruption, innovation, and talent development through even the most difficult circumstances. These awards are not given lightly. They are earned. Recipients join an elite community of forward-thinking global technology executives in the HMG strategy community. We are delighted to celebrate these exemplary leaders and their teams who have delivered unparalleled value to their organizations, their communities, and our world. Please stay with us for the award ceremony and meet the 2020 Global Technology Executives who matter.
So thank you for zooming in today. And first up, we have George Maddaloni, the CTO of Operations at MasterCard. We're going to discuss the great digital acceleration, how tech leaders can fuel innovation and help businesses stay competitive. George, great to see you today.
Hi, Hunter. Nice to see you too.
Hey, let's just talk about career. It's a major theme, a major thread in everything we do at HMG Strategy. You probably had a few pivots in your career. What stands out most when you set the context, and why did you arrive at MasterCard?
All right. Yeah, thanks. And hello from St. Louis and to the folks of St. Louis. I know we've done several of these in New York before, but it's great to be a part of the St. Louis community, especially here with MasterCard now. So very, very exciting. I went, my career really started in technology back in Bell Labs, and grew up as a young pup, writing code, and actually got some great opportunities there, also working with DoD, and just how to put stuff together. And I think that foundation still stays with me today, because it's really what the job of a CTO is all about. I spent quite a bit of time on the service provider side, helping CTOs do their job. Saw kind of some big crises. Was in a large investment bank during 9/11 downtown Manhattan. Was in Detroit, Michigan during auto in 2008 financial crisis and auto bankruptcies, and helped CIOs those crises. And then eventually, for me, decided to go on the other side of the table and really ran IT for or infrastructure for a bank, and then ran it at a large insurance provider. But really coming to MasterCard, for me, two big reasons. One, what we do, and as even our incoming CEO, Michael Miebach, said, what we do is provide connectivity for our customers so that they can, what the technology we're providing is underpinning connectivity that we're providing to our customers every day. And that being a technologist at a firm that's all about the business of technology was reason number one. And quite frankly, reason number two is around our culture. Our outgoing CEO and new chairman put in place the MasterCard way, and something called the decency quotient that this organization has lived by for a long time. And being part of an organization like that is something that really appealed to me.
Well, I've noticed MasterCard's in the news lately. The public business journals. What's new and different as the pandemic's affected every aspect of commerce and how we do business? Why is MasterCard ideally positioned for this current crisis that we're going through?
Yeah, I mean it's been disruption in an instant for everyone around the world, every consumer around the world, right? And while the global economy has certainly shifted to a cashless environment, that happened practically overnight in several countries. We first saw it in Asia, and then of course around the world. But that push to cashless, we've seen, has driven things like what we measure are things like tokenized transactions, which have literally doubled, right, during this period. So while we continue to see the push for open banking and things of that nature, this pandemic has certainly played the need for us to have that technology available, and unfortunately we do.
You know, attracting top talent has always been an issue, right, in technology. And now with the pandemic and working from anywhere, has it opened up some new avenues for you to recruit?
Well, I can speak from experience on this one, right? I joined MasterCard during the pandemic, and I think, that going through that process and just going through the process for all of our employees and introducing a new way of working for them, much less a new way of recruiting and a new way of onboarding, has been one of the primary challenges that we've been working on and focused on for our employees. So getting used to collaboration tools, getting used to more of a two-dimensional relationship, unfortunately, for a period of time, and getting people effective. You got to work at that, and onboarding people and getting developers effective, is something we actually measure and go after, and try to make sure that we can get people, writing code as fast as possible from the time that they come in. Of course, in a secure and very effective way with the right guardrails.
George, you've had an amazing career trajectory and a really cool ascent. Let's talk to us a little bit about why culture matters now. You came to St. Louis, you came to MasterCard for a reason. You saw something unique about the business, right? Unique about the vision, but something very unique about the culture, the company culture. You touched on it earlier. When it doesn't work, why does MasterCard really fit you so well now?
Yeah, I mean, the first story I'll tell you is I actually had a chance to work with MasterCard in my service provider time. And, back then what struck me was, the passion they had for the customer, right? And whenever they approached me as a service provider, they were bringing forward this, hey, our customer is feeling pain because our technology is having a challenge. We need your help to make that better. So there was just this intense passion around the customer and embedded in the technology, and they were just good at what they did. I mean, some of the top, when you think about what's built here and what I've been privileged enough to inherit, it is a network that basically is an edge network that spans over 3,000 locations in the largest financial institutions in the planet, and is basically at the heart of e-commerce, right? So you have to be really good at that, and having that culture that breeds that technology and builds upon it is what primarily attracted me. The second thing was I came for a visit to even the St. Louis location here, and it was Friday. And on Friday at noon, there are people playing ping pong at lunch with each other, all wearing MasterCard kit, all really proud of what they do, all clearly invested in continuing that technology journey and motivated to do it. And that just struck out to me as like the place that I wanted to be.
It's a winning team, I guess, right? It sounds great, George. When you think about automation in the pandemic, what have you been able to get done in the pandemic that probably would have taken years, and because it was accelerating this crisis, things just moved faster?
Yeah, well, listen, I think the journey around automation is never ending. I think the push towards rapidly expanding capacity to keep up with the double-digit growth I mentioned, or even 2x growth that I mentioned that we're seeing. If you don't have that automation, you just can't throw enough people at it. So we could do all the hiring we wanted, but you just can't throw enough people at it to go 10x from a capacity perspective. You got to bring that technology in. You got to automate it from the get-go. You have to have a pipeline to allow developers to do their jobs effectively, and at the heart of that pipeline has got to be automation. So yeah.
Hey, George, great to have you on the program. Thanks for coming out and supporting the summit, and great to see you.
Okay, thanks.
We'll catch up soon. Hey, next up, we have Raj Anbalagan. He's the Senior Vice President of Digital and Technology Innovation at Panera Bread. Raj, good to see you.
Good to see you, Hunter. How are you?
Awesome. Hey, thanks for jumping in here. John sends his support and thinks you're an amazing guy.
Yeah, thanks. And, looking forward to the discussion. Yeah, unfortunately, he couldn't make it. He's tied up with our executive team on the board meeting.
Okay. Hey, look, great to see you. Hey, what changed for you guys in terms of the pandemic? Overnight, retail food changed dramatically overnight, right?
Yeah, it did actually. If you look at it, Hunter, several years ago, we were making a lot of inroads in the digital, but that definitely helped us. Our digital growth has been phenomenal over the past few years. We were close to about 35% digital in a span of 3-4 years. But the COVID kind of accelerated the growth in the digital because, all the customers were going off premise. So the platform that we had laid out definitely helped us, but the demand accelerated that. Now we are doing north of 50% digital, and most of them are off premise. Interesting
times, right?
Yeah.
How did you so quickly pivot and launch with curbside pickup, drive-through, and actually even groceries, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's in fact, the funny story behind that is when we launched delivery and catering years ago, to roll out to the entire system of about 2,000 plus location, it took us about a year, but we launched a couple of new channels or new lines of business in a matter of 2 weeks. So grocery took about 2 weeks, and then curbside took about 2 weeks. Part of this is more along the lines of, as we were closing the doors of the cafes, we were wanting to keep up with the demand and the sale. So we kind of quickly pivoted from rapid pickup to curbside. And most of that was, driven by, the people and the process that we had established, accelerated by the technology that we have kind of laid as a foundation for our digital to be able to quickly pivot and launch new channels in a matter of weeks. And on top of that, it's the collaboration, with the operations and with all the departments within Panera wanting to come together and saying, okay, there is a operational impact involved, but there is a need to go faster. So we rolled the entire program to almost 2,000 plus locations in a matter of 2 weeks.
Hey, Raj, a little bit about your title. It's a unique title. How would you describe your role?
So my role is on the technology side, anything that touches our customers, that comes under this role, responsibility. On top of that, because of COVID, Panera, if you look at in the past several years, we've always been wanting to innovate in the QSR space. We've been leading the pack on the QSR space. We were always focused on innovation, but the COVID accelerated in the need to, invest more on the innovation space. So earlier in the year, there was a realization that there's got to be somebody leading innovation. Let's just not kind of organically go in all the areas. How can somebody come in and kind of lead it? So that also became part of my role and responsibility in Panera. And the third component that I'm responsible for is marketing technology. Anything, any technology, because it's all digital ecosystem. So that's where we kind of felt that you have consumer systems, and then you have marketing, all of them within the digital umbrella. Then on top of that, how can we bring about innovation to further help our growth?
So how do you think of innovation as it relates to this pandemic and meeting new markets and reimagining the customer journey and business models?
Absolutely. It's like, it's in the past, it's always used to be, you start with technology. You think of great ideas, and then you look to see how can we leverage the idea and how can we go and implement in different business, right? it's a completely different lens, right? It's all about, yeah, technology plays a huge part, but it's not about all about technology. It all starts with what are the jobs to be done? What are we trying to actually do? How are we going to improve the sales? It's a partnership with everybody to understand that first. Where can we make impact on the customer journey? Where can we make an impact on the team members inside the cafe that are the front facing of the brand to the customer? So looking through the lens, so much of opportunity comes along that is currently is very, very impactful, but also looking around the corner, it helps us kind of do an analysis and study and saying, what do we need to do now that's going to have an immediate impact? But at the same time, what are all the things we need to be building right now that's going to best position us to when we turn the corner? So it's like, we always use the term future back, right? Where do we see we want to be, and then kind of plan ourselves to be there, kind of work our way backwards from future. So that's the way we kind of go about it. And the partnership with all other, our other departments are that way, right? We are kind of looking through the lens of customers, looking through the lens of team members. How can we leverage technology to accelerate the growth?
Yeah, I love that. Future back. I've never heard that one before. That's a really good one. It's very solid, Raj. When you think about working with the C-suite and the CEO and innovation, any kind of lessons learned or ideas or models that you can share with us today?
Sure. One of the huge lessons learned is, like I said, Hunter, it's all about what is the jobs to be done. It's not the technology. Technology is going to empower. Technology is going to be the platform. Technology is key, but it starts with jobs to be done. Through that lens, it becomes much easier, much better to collaborate and kind of make the technology journey to unlock the opportunities, right? One of the things that has hugely worked, it's all about partnership too. How can we get the excitement going? How can we kind of educate? What can we bring to the table that is going to unlock for our customers and the team members, and in turn help growth, the business? One of the things that has definitely helped us is, we do a lot of hackathons. Like sometimes we even do a quarterly hackathons. Hackathons are not purely about technology. It's about solving business problems. So we kind of build that. It's not, although it's technology powered, we bring everybody together and saying, okay, these are all the problems that we want to solve. These are the goals that we want to achieve. How can a cross-functional team come together, think of ideas to achieve the result? And then they kind of great ideas. And typically in the last several years, things that has come out of those kind of events have accelerated our advancement in the innovation space. And we have kind of launched new ideas into the cafe in a span of weeks from the time we do the hackathon events. So that has actually engaged all other, every C-suite is looking forward to this kind of section because they know a lot of great ideas are going to come, and they know the fact that we will get that implemented in a matter of weeks and months.
Hey, Raj, you seem to me like you're a great business person and business leader first, and an amazing storyteller. Why does storytelling and communication skills matter so much in the C-suite and working with the business?
Because yeah, to me, it's talking their language, helping understand through the lens of customers, through the lens of team members, what can we achieve, right? That to me has kind of tremendously helped the C-suite to understand how a technology can play a role, right? If we talk in terms of ones and zeros, it's not going to connect well. I think that's probably the key thing is, talking the business language, the goals to achieve, and technology being the fuel behind it to accelerate and achieve that.
Any final thoughts on helping the C-suite and other key executives just to discover innovation, how you can actually put a flashlight on an area and create magic there?
Yeah, it's again, it comes down to the journey, right? It's, for example, now we're looking at drive-through as a journey, right? We know what can we do on the drive-through, for example, kind of engaging them at the journey level to be able to understand there could be 20 or 30 different technology we can drop in. But at the end of the day, how is that going to serve the journey? And how does the technology play a role in that space? So it's kind of that itself excites everybody. and we kind of come together, solve it together, and measure the results too. And the key thing is being able to pilot something real quick, learn from it, and then kind of iterate, right? It's not about taking a long time to put anything out there and then test it out. How can we be nimble? We got to be fast. How can we quickly fast and measure and then evaluate and then make our progress towards the goal is a key.
Hey, Raj, we often say here at HMG Strategy, it's the best time ever to be a technology professional. Do you believe that right now more than ever?
Absolutely. Yeah. It's technology has always been a huge part, but I think the dependence and the role the technology has to play is kind of accelerated. And now in this current situation, it's accelerated to an extent that has never seen before.
Raj, great to have you on the program. I'd love to revisit with you again soon.
Absolutely. Great participating, and great. Thanks for having me, and nice talking to you, Hunter.
Great meeting you. Thanks so much. Hey, next up, we have Lisa Nichols. Lisa is going to lead a panel on using data for good. Lisa, welcome back.
Hello, everyone. Well, that was just fantastic, Raj. I really, really enjoyed hearing from you. So it is really my distinct honor and privilege to introduce to you guys these next two incredible leaders that I also consider my friends, Dana Lorberg and Aarti Sharma. And I'm going to read just a little bit about each of them, primarily because I think that it will inspire you when you understand all the things these amazing women are doing. And we were talking with George earlier about the culture of MasterCard. And I think that it'll give you a little insight into MasterCard and all the things that they are doing to improve our world and improve our community. So Dana is an executive vice president, technology advisor for MasterCard's O&T. Dana's been with MasterCard for over 30 years. She started there, though, when she was just 12. Right, Dana? Right. You can pay me later. Okay. Dana has held many roles while at MasterCard and describes herself as a girl geek. She's passionate about encouraging younger girls to pursue a passion for STEM and works tirelessly at this through MasterCard's Girls for Tech program, which is just an incredible program. And Dana, if we have time, maybe you can just touch on that for a minute. Dana has been named among the most influential women of St. Louis by the St. Louis Business Journal, the top 25 non-bank women in finance by U.S. Banker, and the most influential women in payments by both Card Forum and Payments Source. So Dana Lorberg. Aarti is the Vice President of Tech Operations Service Delivery, leading a global team of technologists. In 2019, she completed her doctorate in business and organizational leadership. I know when I first met Aarti, I'm like, I'm just reading your bio and I am tired. I am tired just reading about you with everything that you are doing at MasterCard with the family and then completing her doctorate. She is a co-lead for MasterCard's Business Resource Group, Women Leadership Network. In 2020, Aarti was named one of the most influential women by the St. Louis Business Journal and also received 2 CEO Force for Good awards for her service in the community. She has a passion to use technology, data, and the insights for good. She's also passionate to empower and grow future leaders and help more women join the field of technology. She actually started the MasterCard Mentorship Program at MasterCard to empower female students and students from underserved populations to find their passion in the field of technology and in turn help MasterCard create a pipeline for interns. Very smart, Aarti, to do that, as we know that technologists are difficult to find that talent. So ladies, we have a lot to talk about here, and I want you guys to have all the time that you need to tell all the amazing things that MasterCard's doing. So let's get started. So this may surprise you, or maybe not, but MasterCard's technology powers 73 billion with a B, transactions a year, helping merchants move 5.9 trillion in 150 different currencies. Every one of those digital payments leaves a trail of data that is ripe for capture. Wow. That is a lot of data captured on individual consumer behavior, global trade, and every rung of commerce in between. So Dana, I would like to start with you. How did MasterCard grow to become one of the biggest transaction repositories on the planet?
So it's about getting the data. It's about cleaning the data. And we did a lot of engineering to aggregate that data and filed for a lot of patents and have a lot of IP on that front. But then it's also about categorizing the data and building what we consider propensity models and kind of grouping people into dog lovers and people that just had babies and empty nesters, and not because we know who you are personally, but because we see behavior of consumers around the world. And so that took a lot of engineering work for us to do, that we put a lot of energy on. And then the kind of final stage, in my view, of that we worked on for decades here to get to where we are, is we did put all the fancy technology together to do more predictive kind of modeling. What kind of sense can we make out of this? How can we predict who the criminals are that are spending fraudulently and who the real consumers are? And can we predict who's going to buy a car on Saturday after they bought a hamburger on Tuesday? And people such as Aarti and the data scientists that we employ and the technology that we have and the companies that we've acquired over the years have really given us that real power to use what we created through this amazing network, which I have such passion for and have been privileged to be part of the group that got to build that, to create another really valuable asset in our data and the data warehouse and all the things that go with it. So that's sort of our journey over decades of getting us into this position. But then we wanted to do good with it.
Right. And we're going to talk about that. So Aarti, you know, we all know that safeguarding the data is of utmost importance, right? So why don't you tell us about the nominalization and the encryption of the data? Because people may be wondering about that. You've got the largest repository of data, but you guys really take a lot of measure to safeguard that data for the privacy. So tell the listeners a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, definitely. Dana has said multiple times that we have a lot of power and data is power. So with power comes a lot of responsibility, right? So we definitely take a lot of pride in the way we actually store our data, not just how you said there's every transaction leaves a footprint behind. So we definitely know about where the transaction has happened. We do not know about who is making that transaction. So that is a great way for us to just kind of keep the person aside from where the transaction is happening. We anonymize all our data sets. All the data sets are double encrypted, multi-vaulted and hashed to the point where we are not able to get back to the card number. So it kind of, makes us feel, okay, this is very, very secure and we're not misusing the privileges that we have of the card transaction data that we store here. So from that, when we started storing this data and we have all of this power, we thought, how do we change this and use the data for good? And how do we help the communities with all of the data and the insights that we are able to produce from it? So what happened was with all these propensity models that Dana was talking about that are built on a daily basis, very, very regularly we use the data. One of the things that happened 2.5 years ago, when there was a hurricane in Florida, the OnStar emergency services reached out to us and said, hey, can you guys help us by telling us what gas stations are running out of gas? And we said, yeah, it's something that we can do, but we just didn't realize that we were able to quickly churn something out over the weekend. So what we did was we kind of knew what gas stations everyday growth volume is. We know how many transactions a particular gas station does. But as the gas, fuel keeps going down, as they're declining their gas volumes, their transaction volume declines too. So which tells me an indicator that, oh, this gas station is running out of fuel. So the emergency vehicles should not waste their time going into that gas station because we know they are eventually running out of fuel. So this actually, Lisa, was pretty cool experiment. It started literally with just 2 zip codes in Florida. And we were sending data every 4 hours to OnStar, updating our models every 4 hours and sending them near real-time feeds. And they loved what they were seeing. And soon it grew into 3 states. From 2 zip codes, then they said, okay, we'll not just do Florida, but let's do Atlanta. And, so just kind of increase that zip code analysis so that we're not just focused on the 2 zip codes, which were very, very heavily impacted. So when we were sending that and we were seeing that results back, it was just very gratifying to see that instant result of how the data can be used for something in real time and helping people out there who needed it most.
Right. Well, I think, Aarti, I remember you and I even talking about this, and Dana, I think you were in on that conversation as well. You guys have even collected data where now you can tell, or you've got those analytics that say what really makes up for a thriving community. Can either one of you talk a little bit about that? Because I found that just to be totally fascinating.
I'm so excited about this, Lisa. I have to tell you, so we, and everybody on the call here, so we looked at our data and we've got experience in using this data. Aarti tells the story about the hurricane. We have numerous of those stories, Red Cross and natural disasters and the like. But we looked around and we said, MasterCard is a global company, but there is no place that we call home more than St. Louis. St. Louis is our hometown. And we have a saying that we say, doing well by doing good. And it made me proud to hear George as he was talking about how he picked MasterCard to come, which we're thrilled about. But we are doing work right here in our own hometown. And we said, let's look at the data and the qualities of a community that make it thriving. Some of this data is external data to us, but much of it is data that we have right in our transactional data warehouse. And so we looked at all the zip codes in the US, actually, but we built a model that there's about 18 different data elements that tell us objectively whether this is a thriving or not a thriving community. And we collected this data. You'll find this interesting. I certainly did. Things like by zip code, if you imagine, what is the occupancy rate of the area? What is the real estate value of the area? What is the internet access capability in this zip code? But as you think about payments data, how many new businesses are being started up in this locale? What kind of diversity of business is there in this locale, in this zip code? Spending are we seeing? Is it declining or is it increasing? So we built this model that collected all of this data, and we've begun doing trending analysis, and we actually put really nice, beautiful data visuals on it as well. And you can, with a quick button, see, is this community red, yellow, or green? And is it trending in which direction? And certainly in our St. Louis community, right here at home, we know there's work to be done, guys. There's the Del Mar Divide. There's why are the communities in North St. Louis having more difficulty? Why are they people moving out? Why are we having less businesses? Why are we having less female ownership of small businesses? Of a thriving community, female owner. So we plotted all this data and we collected all this data for the entire US, but are acting upon it right here at home in St. Louis. I'm proud to say we're taking this data, much as I was describing the stages of life, now we have the data. We have to do something about it, guys. And we are really working hard with WashU, with local players in the community, to try to really understand what are the actions we can take.
Yes.
Bringing affordable lending to small businesses, to communities, training for the workforce and getting them, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm really proud to say we're taking this data, we're taking a really hard look at the data, and now we're trying to put it into action. And I just ask all of you, have a think on that. And we all want to really help our own hometown here thrive. And we're trying to help drive some of that with all of our friends in the community.
Well, I know for a fact that Greg and I love that. We want to see our community thrive, and I know what you're talking about, the areas, Dana, that we all need to pitch in and figure out what we can do, and lock arms and say we can do this together, and especially with the insights that are being garnered right now by MasterCard. So, ladies, thank you. I'm proud of both of you. Thank you so much for who you are and what you're doing in our community. So thanks for being with us today. Hunter, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Hey, what a great session, Dana, Aarti, really appreciate it. Lisa, awesome job. Wow, what a great fit. Okay, hey, next session up is Fostering the Data-Driven Organization. Let's welcome Nalini Papalaru, please, to the stage. Nalini, welcome.
Thanks, Hunter.
I'm sorry if I messed that up a bit. Apologies.
Nalini.
Nalini, got it, sorry. Hey, Nalini, when you think about Bayer and your journey and your career ascent, what brought you to Bayer, and what is it that you're most excited about regarding data and data science?
Nalini, I'm Nalini Polavarapu, head of data science at Bayer, customer centricity. I joined Bayer nearly 15 years ago when the data science or data revolution was just beginning. Education-wise, I have dual master's and PhD in computer science and bioinformatics, all from Georgia Tech. During my grad school is when I got connected with data and data analytics and specifically AI. So while I was working on my master's thesis and PhD thesis as well, CDC, Center for Disease Control in Atlanta, they approached our research team in Georgia Tech and they asked us to do a project for them where it's essentially reading the research articles and populating their epidemiology database. So as a human was doing that task, and as a number of articles exploded, it became unmanageable to CDC. And then they approached our AI team at Georgia Tech. We built the innovations, and as we looked through the innovations, we found that at some point, the algorithms or tools that we built, they reached to performance levels that surprised humans, which means that they were picking articles that humans would have missed. So that was my firsthand experience of the power of AI and what AI can do or how it can supplement or enhance a human decision making. And so that stuck with me through the grad school. And as I was graduating, I came in contact with my current employer, Bayer, in a career fair. The environment at Bayer during that time was there were a couple of leaders who heard about AI technology, but did not really figure out what it can do for a traditional company like us. We are a life sciences company in agriculture, pharma, and consumer health. So I was more of an experimental hire to just test this technology out. Thankfully, that experiment was successful. And the first 5 years, my job was to build the foundations as well as building the team and work through some of the culture aspects of it as well. So that's where I spent my first 5 years. The next 5 years, I moved into the business function, and I was built the team ground up again in that business function. And the team reached to a stage where we have AI or data science models powering 100+ decisions right now within that organization, as well as we had seen dramatic shifts in how we are developing products or even delivering those products to the end customers. And we use all different flavors of AI, machine learning, operations research, high-end technologies like deep learning, transfer learning. We use all those different flavors, as well as we increase the level of technology that we use to create value. Right now, I lead the data science team in the commercial side of it, and it is mainly on the new business models, marketing strategies, pricing, and creating customer experience. So that's briefly my journey.
Well, it's amazing. What a career. You must be making amazing connections between data and customer insights and that customer feedback loop, right?
Yes. So there are some examples that I can share. later in the conversation.
Perfect. I'll circle back to you. Hey, let's bring up Tim Kessler. Tim's the COO at MTM. Tim, you know, when you think about culture, culture really matters, right? How important is it in having a culture around a data-driven organization?
Yeah, thanks, Hunter. Culture is super important, as many of you know. In fact, in much of my own experience or research, if you've got an issue creating a data-driven culture, it's less than 10% is actually technology. And so a big reflection on my part is you need to really understand where decisions are made. If decisions are made at the C-level suite, then obviously you're going to have to educate them on the data and make sure they're bought into understanding the data and that they agree with it. If decisions are very decentralized and they're on the front line, the same thing has to be true. And ultimately, if you sort of create a data-centered structure outside of where decisions happen, you know, the first thing that humans generally do is say, I don't believe your data. And so I think if there's any one thing that you need to focus on, it's definitely understanding where decisions are made and ensuring that you're bringing those decision makers along on the journey to make data-driven decisions.
Interesting. And how do you get your CEO to buy into the data strategy?
Yeah, you know, a lot of it to me comes hand in hand back to the culture question. You know, it's really decisions should be made at the most appropriate level. And usually that's not with the people that are on this panel. It should be people that are actually doing the work. And so for me, it's really creating a culture of empowerment where you drive down decision-making to the lowest, most appropriate level. And I think once you can pilot that, you can definitely try it out. You put the right guardrails in place. But I think what you'll find, and it was covered throughout this conversation, Raj talked a lot about it in his session, speed is everything. You've got to be able to make decisions and go fast. And if decisions are made in committees or decisions are made top down and have to flow down through the environment, you're not going to get the answer you want, and it's going to take too long to get a bad answer. So creating an environment of empowered organizations and also you know, getting the data to the people making decisions makes all the difference.
Yeah, Tim, great insights. Stay with us. I'll circle back to you in just a minute. Next up, we have Scott Reichart. Scott's the CIO at Mercy. Scott, great to have you on the program.
Yeah, happy to be here, Hunter. I appreciate it. I was going to introduce myself and thinking I was probably the only one on the call that's a native of St. Louis and been here for decades. But after hearing Dana, it sounds like we got about the same tenure period. So yeah. I've been the CIO at Mercy for a while now, but I grew up in my career here, and I'm fortunate to have many satisfying opportunities to improve healthcare and working with technology and the people that work with technologies and leading a diverse team to really have an impact on what we're doing with healthcare, and particularly today during the pandemic challenges that are being thrown at us. So it's a really important time for technology, but obviously it's an important time for healthcare, extending access and managing healthy populations and really understanding how we become even more essential to our communities, and, you know, driving innovation and care. So there's lots of goals that are really dependent on really turning data into insights, and you know, it's a pretty fertile field for taking all the mountain of data that we've built up with our electronic medical records and all of our devices over the years, and really turning that into better healthcare, and not only for individuals, but for helping populations and communities to be better, and helping us to intervene before care becomes expensive and disruptive to a person's life and livelihood. So it's a fun, interesting place to be right now.
Hey, Scott, what are the challenges of creating a data-centric culture for you?
Well, I think probably the challenge is putting it all together. So like I said, we've had the opportunity of sitting on a lot of data that can be turned into insights. And we've got our health record data, but we also have connections with our payers and device manufacturers and other health systems that really multiply the value of the data, both for care purposes and for creating better customer experiences. Because we all know historically healthcare customer experience is nothing like Panera Bread's customer experience. We need to get better in that. And so we have a lot of aspirations of getting there. But it takes a commitment to really build those integrations and break the barriers between the data sources, and just doing all the hard work of master data management and data governance to make sure, you know, like things like, you know, length of stay in the hospital could be defined 20 different ways, and making sure that we get all that the right way so we're getting good actionable data. But the real key challenge is getting that data, turning it into insights with real-time feeds, but then injecting that into the clinician workflow, because the clinician doesn't need to look for a report or go browse for a dashboard. They need to have real-time alerts in the care delivery. And so I think the challenge for us is to get those insights fast enough, have them be broad enough and appropriate in the right context, and then inject those into the clinician's workflow, whether they're on front of a computer screen or whether we send it to their phone or wherever they're at with that patient interaction. So to me, that's the exciting part. And that's one of the big challenges we have right now, is trying to turn that mountain of data into actionable insights for our clinicians.
Excellent. Hey, Scott, stay with us. I'll circle back to you in just a second. Next up, Michael Seals. Michael is the Senior Vice President of Strategy and the CIO of Hussmann Corporation. Hey, Michael, a little bit about your title. It's an interesting dual role.
Yeah, hi, Hunter. Thanks for having me. This is the first time on this side of the lens for one of these events, so I appreciate you inviting me for that. So actually, for me, it's a bit of a dream job because my background actually has followed a dual path. One is on the business strategy side and the other on IT leadership. So I think what I've realized, and I think what most organizations have, is you can't separate strategy from technology anymore. And I was very fortunate to be able to bring that together in a job that I just love.
So your whole role combines both of them. Can you explain how you see data analytics and strategy interacting?
Yeah, it's actually a very passionate topic of mine. I'm a bit of a math geek, got a minor in math, but I've always been very analytical in nature, so I love this topic. And when you think about data and strategy, really, I want to first acknowledge that, aligning IT with business strategy is not a new concept. Everybody on this webinar does that on a daily basis. But being a data-driven organization and aligning your data strategy with your business strategy requires a little bit different lens. On one end of this spectrum, I think we would all agree that data is used to track your business strategy performance. And business strategy execution is a very, very important topic for all companies. Some companies have formal methodologies, like we use a methodology called Hoshin-Kanri, which is an offshoot of TQM and lean management. And Hoshin-Kanri is basically about identifying lead and lag measures that measure the execution of your strategy and developing targets to improve. So on a monthly basis, we measure the performance of each of our main core business strategies to see if we're achieving those targets. And if we're not achieving those targets, then we drill down deeper into the data and we do what's called an A3, which is a root cause analysis. So it's a very data-driven approach to strategy execution. I would encourage everybody on this call, if you don't know how your company does strategy execution, find out, because you can certainly figure out a way to align your data around that process better. Let me go to the other end of the spectrum, and this is an interesting topic that we've already spoke about on this call already, but nowadays data is a strategy. And every company out there now has so much data, and if they could just figure out how to monetize that, that in and of itself becomes its own business strategy. Certainly the folks at MasterCard, including Dana and Aarti, they saw this a long time ago and they built an organization around data. But today, each and every one of our organizations is generating so much data that is unique to the marketplace. And we have to figure out what is in that data that allows us to actually go monetize some of that. Manufacturing companies like Hussmann, my company, we're actually doing a lot of IoT, and IoT devices spin off a lot of data. So we're looking at what is unique about our data that we can then go and monetize. In the middle of those two is the one that's really exciting. I won't spend a lot of time on it, but just to plant the seed, I encourage everybody to look into it. But when you think about strategy, a lot of people think about the old strategy methodology around Porter's 5 forces. That's really the old way of thinking of strategy. Today, it's more around what's called dynamic capability framework. And what that says is our markets are so dynamic and things are changing so fast that strategy is not about setting a strategy in stone. It's about building capabilities to be agile in an organization. And it all starts with the data that you sense in the marketplace. So the sensing capability in the organization is what drives the business strategy. You look for anomalies in the marketplace, whether it's customers or operating performance, and then you adjust your strategy through agile processes and reallocate resources based upon that. So this whole idea around aligning data and your data governance with your business strategy is really multi-layer, but it's really, really exciting, very important for all of us. The one thing I'll throw out there is that research has proven that companies that do this well outperform those that don't. And the bottom line impact is high single digits, at least low double digits. So there's a payback for doing this right.
You know, hey, Michael, that's a great briefing. That's one of the best intros I've heard in some time covering the topic. Totally agree with that whole idea of sensing the markets and sensing what really matters to adjust the strategy. Great job. Hey, back up to you, Nalini. When you think about projects that you're really excited about and elevating those projects to senior management at Bayer, what comes to mind?
So one thing that when you're thinking about the technology, or this comes to the data or analytics, the technology is really good, but also you don't realize the value of it unless it's integrated into the business strategy, as Michael was saying. So the way that we see here when we are proposing any new data science project or analytics project or data related project, we ask like, what is the value of it? And the value of it comes from what is that business decision that is getting enhanced as a result of this project. So that is one thing that we have seen helped with getting the projects out there with the senior management, as well as with our own teams, with the people on the ground. You know, when is it good enough, or what is that ROI, is when you tie a project to that business decision and clearly measure on how that particular business decision is going to be enhanced as a result of it. That's a one thing that we realized, which has created quite a bit of impact and also resulted in the culture change as well.
When you think of the culture, Bayer, how data driven are you?
I would say that we are pretty advanced, but also we have a very long way to go. So you will see across Bayer, there are different pockets, and some areas, data and data analytics have permeated to a larger extent. In some other areas, there is still much work to do. But also you'll see that we have new business models that we are marketing we are piloting in the marketplace. And some of those new business models that we are going after, these are advisory services, and these are powered heavily with data and analytics. So there is a huge effort and emphasis in that space.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Nalini. Appreciate it. Great insights. Hey, Tim, back to you. What are the best practices to leverage data to drive a digital transformation?
Oh, great question, Hunter. You know, one of the things that we do at MTM, for those of you who don't know, we're also headquartered here in St. Louis. I'm Scott, pretty much born and raised just on the other side of the river, so I'll throw my chip in that hat too. We're in 32 states, and our role is, we believe, our mission statement is actually, we believe in communities without barriers. And the way that shows up for us is we provide transportation services to people that need them most to get to their healthcare appointments, if that's a dialysis appointment or their doctor. And ultimately, we provide those through Medicaid and Medicare reimbursed programs. And so for us, we've got 12 million members across this country that you know, we try and influence every single day. We believe we're part of the care management program. We get these people healthy. We get them to be better contributing members of society. And it turns out they like phones. And so we are actively and constantly trying to influence how they behave, because we know if we can get them to self-serve, we know if we can get them to use our websites or our mobile technology, that we can provide care reminders to them. We can remind them of their appointments. We can make sure that if there's a conflict, or we can even share other maybe gaps in care notifications to them. And so for us, driving a digital strategy is incredibly important. You know, to make that effective, which was your question, really a focus has to be, you have to really think big. You have to start small. And for those, the technology folks on this call, minimum viable product, I would say, is a really important concept. And then once you sort of test out that MVP through data, you scale it fast. And so, you know, big focus on progress over perfection. You cannot boil the ocean. Start with things that matter, get experience, learn from it, and then grow.
Great insights, Tim. Thanks for your time. Hey, Scott, when you think of your team, what and the data, turning data into insights, what are you and your team most proud of?
I guess I have to say I'm most excited when we can significantly impact the quality of care. We do a lot of things, obviously, with our analytics and our business model and our business operations, but things that we do that really impact care impacts our community and the people, my neighbors and friends and people that come to Mercy for care. So that's what I get most excited about. You know, a few years ago, we started developing algorithms around, predicting negative trends in patients. So one of the first ones we did was a sepsis prediction model that we did about 4 or 5 years ago that we had really good data that undoubtedly was saving lives. It was really using lots of small indicators that were collected by our medical devices and by our electronic medical record and turning those into warning signs for the nurses and ICU team that a patient was tending towards a bad infection. And that was very satisfying to be part of that. So really that kind of set the course for us. More recently, we've developed a model for patients in the hospital when they're at risk of having a hypoglycemic event where their blood sugar gets off. And, that's really a huge indicator of increased morbidity and length of stay. So preventing those is a real high priority for our clinical teams. And we developed a predictive model that creates a risk score for those events and delivers that score inside the workflow, as I was talking about earlier, that the clinician can have access to as a warning while they're taking care of the patient. So those kind of things are probably the most exciting. We've got another one where we're doing risk models for readmission after chemotherapy treatments. So again, a lot of things are trying to proactively figure out what's going to happen with patients that are on the edge of care, whether they're going to trend negative or go better. And then of course this year, man, our team, I'm so proud of our team with the work they've done around the COVID prediction models. The task force announcements you see on the news every night, those are really driven by my data science team that's really working with the other hospital systems to create those models and, everything from predicting the case rate and mortality rate, but they also built models to help us predict when people come into the emergency departments, what's their morbidity risk? How do we stack rank people in terms of who should we see first and who should we get into a room versus maybe send home with an oxygen prescription. So all those things are being aided by data and by some AI and machine learning algorithms. So I'm really proud of our teams that are doing that, and that's they're working many hours a day right now just because the situation continues to evolve. But I would think if I had to answer what's proud, I think that's what I'm most proud of right now is what our team's doing in terms of the pandemic response.
Amazing stuff being on the front line there as first responders in terms of our medical healthcare system. Thank you so much, Scott, for coming on the program. Hey, Michael, when you think of data now and you're in terms of prioritizing how you think of the world at Hussmann, how important is data and how much do you rely on it?
Well, I can tell you, what's really interesting is if you want to make your business customers happy, deliver a new dashboard that tells them something they didn't know. And it is really one of the easiest ways to add value to the business. Of course, all the work that goes on behind the scenes to get there is not fully appreciated. But I think what we've done best really is about aligning with the business and establishing a ongoing data governance model that aligns our technical people with the business folks so that we can prioritize limited resources. There's so much opportunity in developing BI tools, but everybody has limited resources. So you got to pick the best ones to deliver. So it's really establishing that business relationship is really what I think is the biggest impact for us.
Michael, big theme for us is leadership. It's career ascent. It's really planning your next move or reposition yourself in your current company, current role, so you're seen as more strategic. Any kind of tips or ideas on how to be a more effective leader in this data-driven world we live in?
I think one is just understanding what's going on in your marketplace, competitors, customers, and so forth, and think about what's that opportunity for each and every one of our companies. We're all strategists now, especially us, folks that have technology skills, because what our business colleagues don't always understand is how to apply this new technology, whether it's IoT or machine learning or quantum computing. I'm hoping to hear a lot about this afternoon.
Nalini, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
When you think of this kind of data-driven environment we're in right now, right? How important it is to be a leader in the business, leader in the C-suite, leader helping the CEO frame out market dynamics, market issues, and the whole go-to-market. Data wins now, right? Data is so important, right, Nalini?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. And any kind of business decision that you're making, be it in the marketplace or be it thinking about where do I, what products do I need to develop, or what kind of way do I want to launch next? All those things, when they're powered with data, the decision will be a totally different quality as well as value when it's powered with the data. Few things that we do. So part of my team also works on the marketing side of it, market optimization. So there we are looking at, one is, who are the best customers to reach? When is a good time to reach them? Then when we are thinking about market funding, can we bring in some data-driven approach to how we provide that market funding to our customers? So both the company as well as the end customer derives the value. And then we also are going with the advisory services. And so what advisory services is, in the past, we were more of a product company, and we are still a product company. So the way that we do is we sell seed and we sell chemicals, biologicals, and traits. And then anything that the end customers get value, they take it, it's theirs after that. So our job is selling those products. To now we are going with them all the way down, and we are providing them advisory services. And what this advisory services is, we are actually selling a metric, which means like a data, you can say there. So we are selling them, or we are providing them or partnering with them on a goal, like a yield goal in this case. And at the end, if that yield goal is achieved, then it's win-win for both. If it's not achieved, like a year like last year when there was unprecedented flooding in the Midwest, so then that means we are with them sharing that risk. So you can see that going from a product to a services or advisory services, that's heavily powered with the data and analytics.
Excellent, Nalini. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Great to see you. By the way, this is the best data panel we've done in 14 years, no doubt. I really, really mean it. Tim, final comment on data and the importance of data?
I think, thanks, Hunter. I think what's really important is that you just focus on what matters most. You have to prioritize. I know it's been said a number of times, but ultimately you cannot boil the ocean. You need to find something that's going to add value. And Scott said it earlier. But here's the fun thing about this. We don't have to reinvent. We don't even have to be that smart. We can steal things from Panera, from Amazon, even from Mercy, where they're doing a great job. It's how do we apply that to our own individual business? And back to what Raj said, there's jobs to be done. If you focus on the things that matter most to the people that you serve, using best practices from everywhere around you, and you can focus and prioritize, you will be successful.
Great job, Tim. Thanks for coming on the program. Scott, you want to kind of wrap it up for us here?
Yeah, I can. Like I said at the beginning, it's a really exciting time to be working with people that have an awareness of what data can bring to our strategy and to our culture, and how we all serve our communities in different ways. It's been interesting to hear everyone's take and different focal point about really ultimately about serving our customer bases and our communities. So we have a lot in common. It sounds like there's a lot of great passion in the St. Louis area for this topic. So I'm really happy to be part of this discussion today.
Excellent. Great to have you on the program. Hey, Michael, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, just from my perspective, I just think we need more people in this field, to be honest with you. We need to figure out how to get more data scientists, because there's so much demand and there's so much opportunity for every business that we need to fill the pipeline somehow.
Thank you, everyone. Great session. Again, I really meant that. You're welcome to present at any one of our 30 markets around the world, any one of our 100 summits throughout the year. You guys were this was top notch. Hopefully you'll stay with us. Next up, we have the importance of quantum technologies to the U.S. Department of Energy. Paul Dabbar. Paul's the principal advisor at the U.S. Department of Energy. Paul, welcome to the program. Take it from the top. Do you what's on your mind today regarding this really timely topic?
Okay, great. Well, quantum is a big topic that fits into a lot of the history of the Department of Energy. As some of you may know, but some of you may not, DOE is basically a very large R&D organization. We run the 17 national labs that evolved from the Manhattan Project, including Niels Bohr, who was part of, speaking of quantum, and obviously Bell and Feynman and others that we supported over the course of years. And we have 60,000 researchers in high energy physics and advanced computing and so on. It's the largest R&D organization in the world, and the largest Nobel Prize generator in the world. And there's a lot of history in our various programs at the National Lab Complex and who we support at universities in particle physics and advanced computing and materials, all these things that kind of feed into the history and where we are at with quantum. A few years ago, the National Photonics Initiative, which was mostly university and national lab PIs, really started pushing that there should be a national plan for quantum. When we as a leadership team came in 4 years ago, we decided to embrace that. And we saw the advances in quantum computing and other types of quantum information technologies and sciences moving quite fast from a history of us and other federal agencies supporting that. So we embraced the National Quantum Initiative bill. Myself and a few others helped get it passed. We got to testify before the Senate talking about Schrodinger's cat, which successfully confused a few senators in an open hearing. So that was fun. And we got an extra $1.25 billion of additional dollars for the National Quantum Initiative. That was a major, that's an increase on top of everything that we were doing. So it was a major jump. And there were us, NSF, National Science Foundation, and NIST at Commerce were all part of that bill. We were the biggest of the three. And NSF is off and running according to the bill to go help fund research and also support academic institutions. NIST helped stood up QECD, which is effectively a trade group around it. And we went to go set up, according to the bill, 5 new quantum centers for research, for R&D for it. So very, very specifically. The bill directed myself and the Department of Energy to go allow for the bidders for these R&D centers in quantum that they could include national labs, academia, the private sector, or consortiums thereof. And when we put out the proposals, we said we actually want to see all 3 together. So we made it a requirement as something that would be a value for that. Well, we announced those a few months ago, the 5 centers. We have 69 parties associated with that. We have 2 other countries. We got everything from big national labs and big universities like Caltech and MIT. We got historical Black colleges who are members. And we got big industrial partners like Microsoft, Applied Materials, especially on the fabrication side, IBM, and even Goldman Sachs is a part of the R&D. So we've been ramping that up significantly, and Congress is proposing to even give us more money than that right now. We'll see what happens with the current budget, but there continues to be incredibly large support. We also stood up a National Quantum Initiative advisory board where people like John Preskill and others who are kind of leaders in quantum information science and theory, as well as practical applications, where we stood that up, and we had our first national advisory board to help give advice to the federal footprint about where to go invest further. And then the last thing I would mention is a couple of months ago, we laid out the blueprint for the quantum internet. And we had about 70 people who had gotten together in one of our last in-person meetings before COVID in New York City, where the 70 of us helped put together a blueprint for the hardware and software stack associated with what should be needed for a quantum internet, and also a plan for actually how to build out those networks. So it's been a busy few months since July. Everything I just described was since July. It's been really exciting. We've had a number of major advances already at a number of our centers. I won't talk through those, but whether it's initial discussions on satellites for quantum communication entanglement to space, or some very specific technologies. But we've been doing that. We're very excited as a customer. So not just an R&D company, but as a customer of quantum computing in particular, but also quantum communications and quantum sensing, the big 3. And so I look forward to a conversation about the potential applications. But we see ourselves just as we're the first purchaser of the top supercomputers in the world, right? We're always number 1. We're buying the first ones, working with AMD and NVIDIA and Intel and Cray, HP, and so on. So we deploy the top supercomputer in the world. And so we see ourselves as a first customer for quantum computing. And obviously, quantum communications is necessary to move quantum data, and quantum sensing has a broad application. So it's a very exciting time for us. We've been we've been labeled as highly enthusiastic at the federal government in terms of leadership on this. I plead guilty to that, and everyone else at the leadership of the National Science Foundation, White House under OSTP, Kratsios and Kelvin Drogemeyer, and NIST and others. We are very enthusiastic, and we're glad to have support from Congress, continued increasing even more than the last couple of years.
Hey, Paul, one quick question before we go to the panel. Where do you see the application, both in the enterprise and to the other businesses and to the consumer? Yeah,
so I'll start with us as a first customer. Big high performance computing. You can call quantum computing as that on steroids. We're a big user of that. We see utilization for quantum computing for modeling, for quantum chemistry, quantum materials, and quantum biology, for drug design, for materials design, for chemistry design, for, let's say, next generation batteries, or biotech drugs. And so we use that as part of our research, as kind of a first user for that. I think in the commercial sector, I certainly see some of the discovery, whether it's in biology and elsewhere, as supporting that. We also see, obviously, in finance. I came from a partial finance background, so fraud detection and portfolio management is clearly a value. And then sensing, there's some first use for sensing for some more esoteric things like dark energy and dark matter, but we care about that, trying to figure out how the universe really works using quantum sensors. But we see, in particular, first use case in the commercial sector for our quantum sensors for biology characterization to replace the MRI, a much better MRI machine, which would have a pretty material changes for biology and healthcare.
Fascinating stuff. Thanks so much for the update. Loved it. Really appreciate it, Paul. Let's bring the panelists up on stage here and introduce Pierre Hogan. Peter's been a great fan and supporter of the summit now for 7 years. He's the CTO of Pulse Holdings. Peter, take it away.
Thank you, Hunter. I really appreciate that. First, I'd like to introduce the panel. Paul, thank you very much for agreeing to stay with us. Also, thank you very much for the insight. I think you've got probably the most holistic view on what's happening in quantum compute. So thank you very much for sharing some of the wisdom and agreeing to answer some more questions. I'd also like to introduce Jeff Miller. Jeff's the CISO for Honeywell, and he's been a part of Honeywell's quantum compute program for several years now, and he'll be sharing several insights on what Honeywell's doing in this space, along with the security aspects of it. And I'd also like to introduce Mark Jackson. Mark is the Senior Vice President of Cambridge Quantum Computing, and they have a very interesting software platform where you can create applications that can be deployed to multiple different quantum hardware platforms. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the session. So I guess, welcome, gentlemen. Thank you all for being here. As this is going to be a little bit of a speed dating session, since we have about 20 minutes, I'd like to ask you each the same two-part question and get each of your perspectives on it. So I guess I'm going to start with Jeff. And the question is, the first part of it is, when do you believe quantum computing capabilities will outperform transitional computing? Is it still evolving? And the second part is, it's a little bit similar to Hunter's question of, where do you see the earliest adopter based on the testing today? So Jeff, turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Peter, and honored to be alongside some amazing panelists today, and certainly appreciate the opportunity to even be included in today's discussion. And listening to Paul's comments, it's hard to not get excited about quantum computing. I know my journey began about 2.5 years ago, which is quite small compared to the history of quantum computing. But as you mentioned, I'm the Chief Security Officer for our Honeywell Quantum Solutions organization, and I'm fortunate to lead IT and security for our investment in quantum computing technology and innovation here at Honeywell. My team gets to work side by side with the scientists and engineers
And when I came up here to the Denver area, roughly 2 years ago, got to see behind the scenes of what we're doing to build an ion trap quantum computer and the amazing talent that we had. It was an easy decision to make the leap up here. And earlier this month, it seems a lot of press out there, a lot of press in general this year about quantum computing. There's a lot of great resources out there, but for us specifically, we did release our H1 model system earlier this month with 10 qubits. That's operating at a quantum volume of 128. Quantum volume for us is important because it doesn't look at just physical qubits. It's also looking at the fidelity or the amount of error, as well as the connectivity. And for us, all-to-all connectivity is very important, the amount of interaction between atoms within the environment. And as we look towards the 10-year roadmap, which is important to answer your question, we're going to build upon our architecture over the next 10 years using enabling technology, including our own Honeywell Foundry for our ion trap fabrication, so that we can provide more and more value to enterprises. So kind of getting back to the question, so where are we today, and what can we use quantum computers for? I think actually Paul did a great job of highlighting some of those key areas. But if we were to look at where are we right now and where do we see the most value, where we're seeing quantum computing at this point is really a specialized utility in using quantum computers alongside classical computers. So as part of a connected loop process of putting a quantum computer in that loop has some very intriguing capabilities to help augment some of the classical computing capabilities that exist today. There's also strong indications of certain portions of computation, specifically machine learning, which can be much better performed on a quantum computer. And so we see that kind of as the near term, but gradually as we see more and more applications appear, we're going to see a point where quantum becomes the preferred path to classical computation. And I think when we look at who's using it at a very high level, we're starting to see more and more industries investigating quantum. And the common thread is exactly what Paul was talking about, and it's solutions in the area of optimization, what I just mentioned around acceleration of machine learning, and then what Paul kind of talked about as far as simulation, whether that's chemicals or materials. But what we do realize is that just about every industry has problems that can be addressed with quantum. And the early adopters are the ones that are recognizing that quantum computing is a marathon, and that getting engaged now is what's going to set themselves up for success in the future. And so that's what we're certainly encouraging everybody through access to our system and other systems, and you'll hear more from Cambridge Quantum as well. Now is the time to get invested, to kind of see where can quantum computing address your needs and your solutions in the future.
Great, thank you, Jeff. That's very helpful. Mark, same question to you. Your thoughts?
So first, thank you all very much for inviting me to speak on this panel. So I do work at Cambridge Quantum Computing, and I joined about 3 years ago. And I remember at the time when I told people that I now work in quantum computing, I told my physics friends this, and some of them kind of chuckled. They questioned whether quantum computers really existed in any practical sense. And no one is laughing now. The progress the past few years has been extraordinary. Many of you have probably heard of Moore's Law, which has shown that the computing power doubles every 18 months or so. Quantum computing has been on an even faster trajectory. So as Jeff mentioned, there's something called the quantum volume, which takes into account the factors like the number of qubits and the quality of qubits and such. And for example, the IBM progress has been doubling the quantum volume every 12 months, but Honeywell believes that it can actually increase it by a factor of 10 every year for the next 5 years. And so that means in 5 years, we think we might be 100,000 times more powerful with quantum computing. And so it's hard to imagine that kind of progress, but that's the trajectory that we're on right now. And so if this holds, we expect that there could be commercial advantages in just a few years. We don't think there's any today, but in the next few years, we think that actually is a very realistic possibility. In terms of what the first applications will be, so Jeff mentioned quantum chemistry as one of the first applications, especially for material science or personalized medicine. And that certainly will be one of the main applications. One thing that we're very interested in is financial applications. And that's because we already know of several quantum algorithms that should have a faster speed up compared to their classical counterparts. But finance is also very well positioned to invest in it. There's a lot of money and interest going into it right now. There are, just in the past year, there have been several financial groups who have announced either setting up partnerships with quantum computing startups such as ours, or have started their own groups. For example, Goldman Sachs now has a fully functional quantum group of their own. And so, so I think this is where we're going to see a lot of the first applications.
Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate the insight. Paul, same question back to you. I think you shared a little bit about, who the early adopters are, but when do you see the capabilities competing with today's technology? Or
yeah, so there's, as Mark said, by the way, I think Mark was an alumni of Fermi Lab, so he's an alumni of the complex. There's obviously targets of 3 years out, for example, by IBM for 1,000 qubits. Jeff and Mark were talking about quantum volume and the sort of targets. It does appear that probably, and there was an awful lot of debate about the quantum supremacy paper that Google did about a year or so ago now. But it's beginning to get to the point of where NISQ machines can actually have some real value. And I do think in that 2 to 3 year range, I think moving into more practical applications that Jeff and Mark were just talking about, I think that's a likely place, whether it's Jeff's team or that he was just talking about and Mark was talking about, or the Google targets or the IBM targets or Rigetti's. I was just there too. So I do think that's probably the time frame where so it is quite close. I agree with Mark's point. And I think that we talked through a number of those applications. It is important, by the way, not only to get quantum computing up and going, but quantum communications is also vital. Moving quantum data back and forth. There's a bit of a business debate about business model, about cloud quantum versus distributed quantum, and moving quantum data around. And there's a whole long conversation with about superposition and entanglement and repeaters and single photon generators and utilization of communication, existing fiber, and then even satellites. And so there's a whole broad swath. There's obviously quantum computing is at the forefront of the technology, but right behind it, quantum communications will be necessary.
Great, that's some great insight too, because clearly you can do the compute in a vacuum, but in today, when you were speaking of the quantum internet, that takes it to a whole different level. I mean, that's real time. That's how do we get what we have equivalent today at a higher level with the whole stack, the hardware, the software, the network.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'd like to point out, the last week we announced at Brookhaven National Lab where we entangled 3 nodes. And entangling 3 nodes instead of just 2 nodes is a first step to a quantum internet, when you can have more than one connecting. And that's an exciting piece of advancement that just occurred at our national lab at Brookhaven.
Great, thank you for sharing. I'm going to circle back to Jeff. Jeff, as the CISO for Honeywell, one of the topics that keeps coming up in the quantum space is security. Can you share some of the use cases Honeywell's quantum computing is helping to evolve?
Yeah, and so I think, an interesting comment to kind of bridge the two questions, and both Paul and Mark brought this up. We're moving faster than I think a lot of people expected, from a technology perspective, from a utilization perspective, the organizations working together, and the competition that exists between the providers. It's very fascinating, and I think what we're seeing is what we thought was going to happen 5, 10 years, 20 years down the road is happening a lot faster than we think. And the reason why that's important is when you look at the use of quantum computing from a cybersecurity perspective, there's really 2 answers to that. There's the elephant in the room, which is quantum cryptography, and I'll talk about that. And then there's everything else. And so the one that gets the most airtime, obviously, is encryption and the concerns of what a quantum computer can do. But then with every risk is an opportunity. And so the other side of that would be quantum encryption. And so why is that an issue? if we get down to the basics of encryption technologies and how keys are shared, classical computing is pseudo randomness. So there's inherent flaws over time, depending upon the amount of compute capability that exists out there to break that encryption, versus a quantum computer, which is truly random due to its nature in physics. And so, so at some point, it will be a non-issue or a trivial issue because everyone will be using quantum encryption. Therefore, it's no longer a threat necessarily. But we have to get there. And in fact, this isn't a new issue. Like I said, it's been talked about for years. I mean, NIST has been working for the past 3 years on standardizing an algorithm that can help protect our data and our encryption capabilities. And they're continuing down that path. And hopefully we'll have something out in the next couple of years to do that. So I think everyone's recognizing the near-term implications of quantum computing and cybersecurity. And I think that's the one, again, that gets the most amount of interest for very obvious reasons. I think when we start to look at where does quantum computing have an impact in other areas of cybersecurity, it really goes back to the use cases that we're seeing today, whether that is through optimization or acceleration of machine learning or even simulation. And those same principles apply to the technologies in cybersecurity today, whether it's something as basic as vulnerability management or something as more next gen, as in how machine learning and artificial intelligence is being used for behavior analysis, finding that needle in a sack of needles. A quantum computer is very well suited to doing that when the time is right. And so I think what we're going to see over time are, Honeywell working with Mark's organization at Cambridge Quantum Computing as an example to solve those types of problems. And seeing where that goes. So I think right now it's going to continue to be a lot of focus on the quantum cryptography and quantum encryption aspect. And then slowly gradually as these other new technologies come online, we're going to see a lot more adoption in the cybersecurity space from a defensive perspective. But then we're also going to see the other side, which is going to be the offensive utilization of quantum computing for all the same reasons that we'd use on the defensive side. So it's going to get very interesting very quickly from a cybersecurity perspective.
So we can all look forward to quantum phishing. Thank you so much. Very helpful, very insightful. Mark, I'd like to ask you a question too. With Cambridge Quantum Computing's platform, you guys are playing the field a little bit. You're building a software platform that can then deploy to multiple hardware platforms. Do you want to talk about that a little and share that insight?
Sure, Peter. So there's two separate issues which fortunately have the same solution. The first issue is that there are a lot of quantum computers out there. In fact, we know of over 100 just in the Western Hemisphere alone. Some of them are by big corporations like Honeywell, some are by startups, some are by academic institutions. And each of these groups is using their own approach. They're using different approaches for the technology to build the quantum computers. Some are trying to increase the quality of the qubits, some the number of qubits. And so there's a lot of different approaches going on right now, and they cycle through very quickly. So we've seen just Honeywell, they came out with one, and then they came out with an improved version just a few months later, and so forth. So that's the first issue is there's lots of hardware platforms right now. The second issue is that the only time that a user interacts with a quantum computer is a combination of hardware and software. So just like with normal computers, you have to write programs to run on the quantum computer. And you want to make that program as efficient as possible. This is especially true nowadays with this so-called NISQ era, noisy intermediate scale quantum that Paul mentioned. And what NISQ means is we do have quantum computers, but we don't have that many qubits, and they're still kind of noisy. There's still a rather large error rate in the qubits. And so we can't use sophisticated techniques like error correction or so forth. We have to keep the programs kind of small and run them and just hope that an error doesn't creep in. We just hope for the best kind of. And so we kind of adjust our programs to accommodate that. And so between these two problems, what CQC has developed is a quantum compiler, which we call Ticket. And what Ticket does is you write your quantum program, and then you simply select which platform you want to execute it on. So you just indicate that with one line. And Ticket will automatically find the most efficient way to implement your program on that machine that you've chosen. So it has a variety of different efficiency mechanisms. Some are kind of generic, some depend on that specific platform that you've chosen. And if you want to change platforms, say you want to go from like Honeywell to IBM's machine or something, you don't need to completely rewrite your code. You simply change one line indicating that. And all the details of the platform are built in to our compiler. It takes care of it for you, so you don't have to. And so this is what we've done, because we don't know who's going to win the hardware game. There will probably be several winners. Different platforms are better suited for different types of problems. And so this is what we've done. And Ticket already accommodates all of the major quantum hardware platforms that people are probably familiar with. And so this is what we're offering.
Great, thank you very much. Very, very helpful. Paul, I know we're running out of time, but I'd like to ask you one last question. With the work the Department of Energy has done in the quantum space, why do you think the private and public partnership model is so important for the next steps of quantum?
Yeah, so I've spent a lot of time. I mean, I deal with policy and how we spend money, right, and try to get the most out of it from the federal taxpayer point of view. And just to remind something that I think that worked well, but also had problems is, we spent a lot of time analyzing the formation of the internet. And I think, as most people know, between 1965 and 69, DARPA at DoD had been evaluating moving data on the AT&T system and figured out that modems could be invented. And they funded the first 4 modems at the 4 universities out west. It took 20 years, however, until the World Wide Web was created and the private sector started getting access. 20 years is a full generation. And that was, internet was successful, but I think you could argue that that probably took longer than it should have. I was talking with someone who created the first browser, probably guess who that is. And, the comment was that that they could not get access to NSFNet, which is the broad internet before 1989, because it was illegal for the private sector to get access to NSFNet, and everyone kind of just absorbed that. And it was a different time frame where the philosophy was the funding for those modems were for research and for academia use and not for the private sector. And so we thought that as we were kind of formulating this in the bill and everything I was describing earlier, is that we thought that waiting for 20 years, a full generation from engaging with the private sector on this or any other new technologies that we're working on is not a great idea. And so we wanted to structure it up front so we didn't have the full 20 years problem from the initial DOE funding or government funding to let's bring in the private sector. And so that was a core part of how we structure this very differently, so that the private sector and academia and the national lab complex federal footprint are all together on day one, not year 20. And as a side point, there are people looking at this policy and the structure for other technology areas. Or, should the federal government be working similarly on day one with other things unrelated to quantum? As a model for the country to accelerate discovery in a number of areas.
Well, Paul, let me speak on behalf of the private sector and say thank you for not waiting 20 years. And again, I know we've run out of time, but Paul, Jeff, and Mark, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom in this evolving space. And we really appreciate having you all. And I'll turn it back over to Hunter.
Great job, Pete. Great job, guys. Thank you so much for being on the program. Loved it. Good to see you all. Next up, we have Securing the Future of Work. I'd like to introduce our first panelist, Arun DeSouza. Arun's the Chief Information Security and Privacy Officer for Nexteer Automotive. Arun, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Hunter. Happy to be here. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect. Yep. Sound and clear. Good job. Hey, what's in your mind relative to securing this whole new threat landscape since we went to a work from home or work from anywhere environment?
I think one thing that I've learned is the notion that identity is the cornerstone for secure delivery of digital applications and services, especially as companies have to embrace digital transformation at scale, especially when you're working from home, anytime, anywhere. Identity is really centric to delivering services securely.
And do you see the threat landscape changing anytime soon into 2021?
I think that some of the threats that we see today will continue to be around. This year, we've seen a lot of phishing attempts, especially what we call spear phishing and whaling attempts against executives and all kinds of fraud attempts. Fortunately, it's been blocked by our email security gateway. What's interesting about this is the business email compromise is considered to be the largest threat vector, especially because it lets ransomware into the environment, which can have a lot of bad effects. Looking forward, I think some of the things that are still going to stay around next year and the years to come, ransomware, the Internet of Things, security thereby, supply chain and third-party attacks, and intellectual property protection, right? And these are huge table stakes for companies because of data breaches, loss of revenue, brand impact, and so on.
Excellent, Arun. We have a little poll here. What security topics are top of mind right now? If you could simply fill out the form and hit submit, we'll circle back to those results here in a minute. You know, when you think of guiding principles that you'd offer for security folks, what are your top guiding principles, Arun?
Probably, I think 6 of them. Let me gather my thoughts for a second. The first is acting as a transformational business leader, because the era of the CISO as a business leader is here for sure. And that a lot of things like linking the InfoSec strategic plan to business goals, and also balancing the tightrope of value protection versus value creation. Number 2 is embracing and lead change, because especially as the world around us changes with the 4th industrial revolution, quantum computing and IoT and everything, it's very important to embrace change and enact that with your team, all the way from collaboration and communication, envisioning and storytelling, and so on. The third thing I touched upon earlier is actually adopting identity as a cornerstone for any time, anyway authorized access. And one of the buzzwords we hear is zero trust, and that allows the opportunity to actually help drive digital transformation faster, as well as enhance the user experience and productivity. Principle number 4 is actually quite apropos in this day and age. That is embracing the notion of convergence, consolidation, and cost savings. And going from sort of legacy technologies like a VPN, for example, to zero trust to enact cost savings and business productivity as an example. Principle number 5, I'd say, is to adopt and implement people-centric security, because Hunter, you know, every year I check these data, 95% of security problems come from people. So investing in training and awareness, gamification, and keeping that top of mind and being a trusted partner to the business is really very important. And the last one will probably the least fun is deploying a layered security architecture and enacting those people, process, and technology safeguards in tandem.
Excellent, Arun. Appreciate it. Stay right there. I'll circle back to you in just a minute. Hey, next up we have Rebecca Wynn. Rebecca is the Global CISO and Chief Privacy Officer at 24/7 AI. Great to see you, Rebecca.
Nice to be back again, Hunter.
Yeah, where are you at? Where are you based today?
Today I'm in my home area, which is Phoenix, Arizona, a nice 88 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh, rub it in there. Okay, that's great. No, super. Hey, what's on your mind today regarding this new extended threat landscape, work from anywhere environment? What's keeping you up at night?
Everybody and everything. We're a global company, so we're all over the world. So one of the things that we do is we have call center operations, but then we're very strong in technology. We have chatbots and different things along those lines. So 24/7 is really going 24/7. So as we looked at the new landscape, one of the things that a lot of people forgot about, we didn't. We reached out immediately to our MPLS, and what were they doing to strengthen their backbone, as now the whole world is riding that backbone instead of being out of offices. When I had to go ahead and move over 10,000 plus employees immediately to home around the world, it wasn't only about logistics and getting them equipment, which we reached out to vendors about getting the equipment and getting forefront on the list of getting everything that we possibly need. But people forget that people live in cities. Not everybody's city has the strongest internet. So how are you going to be handling that? How are you going to handle out brownouts and blackouts and things along those lines? Who is a trusted person in your home? So we had to go ahead and retrain everybody. One of the things that we do is we have people show us exactly how they're going to work at home. And I sign off on that. I have some other people sign off on it too. And the thing is being able to have, within about a 3-foot radius, knowing that the area that I signed off for them to work on is the area that they're going to work in. So those were just some of those areas. But then you talk about riding on our backbone and our network, our bandwidth. Then you're talking about personnel having to be available even that much more so in case something goes down along those lines. So we were able to move very, very quickly as 24/7 because they brought other thought leaders like myself in, and we started moving that way, at least conceptually. So what's interesting is that when I met with my clients, we have Fortune 100, 500,000, 2,000 clients. They were going, Rebecca, how did you and your team, also I partner with the CIO as well, how were you guys able to move so quickly to be fully engaged out of home? And we go ahead and enable our customers that allow their clients, their consumers, to have a better customer experience in a variety of ways. And as they're moving their operations fully to being, on the internet, we had able to do that very quickly and be in front of them so they wouldn't lose profits. So it's been a very interesting 6 months, to say the least.
Any guiding principles that you rely on as you look to your employees and your team?
Yeah, the one thing I tell everybody, don't forget about security by design and default, privacy by design and default, compliance by design and default, risk management by design and default. And we reached out to our business partners. We also reached out to our clients because people had to have a little greater risk appetite as everybody shifted very, very quickly to working at home. But the one thing that we didn't do is we didn't lose sight on keeping as tight of controls as you possibly could around those elements. And it's interesting when I talk to other CISOs, one of the things that's having back is a lot of people didn't realize that COVID was going to last as long as it has been. And now the world is going through a second wave. So they just kind of did let's just move it and deal with it later. We did not do that at 24/7. And now they're coming back and going, oh crap, now we got to try and go back and shore up our backbone and everything else. So they weren't very mindful on that. So one thing I tell people in any pandemic, and I was pandemic leader for the company, don't lose sight of that. What it is, it's about managing risk and managing the risk appetite that not only you can go ahead and absorb as a company, but that the people who you're doing business with can also sustain. And so a lot of them are going back and doing that. But anytime you have business continuity, disaster recovery, incident response, pandemic response, don't lose sight of the core principles ever.
Great stuff. Thanks, Rebecca. Great to see you again as well. Hey, next up we have Monti Knode. Monti's the Director of Customer Success at Horizon 3 AI. Good to see you, Monti.
Good to see you too, Hunter. How are you doing?
Oh, good. Hey, give everyone a little bit about your background in terms of the service. And by the way, thanks for your service.
Thank you very much. So it's interesting. You're in St. Louis here this week, and St. Louis is very close to my heart. That's where U.S. Transportation Command is, which I'm representing for some of them. Vibrant tech community out there, and as the center of the U.S., you have a lot of logistics and other things growing out there that have been there for a long time. I reference that because that's part of my history. That's where Snehal and I met, who's the CEO for Horizon 3. And after 26 years in the Air Force, where I was a offensive and defensive cyber operations officer, I joined Horizon 3. I'd been a CIO and a CISO, and this notion of customer as the mission was very intriguing to me. And so that's why I joined as the Director of Customer Success here, and getting to bring some of that military flair over to Horizon 3 and the AI that we're employing every day.
Hey, Monti, totally off script, but what do you know and what can you share with us that's not classified as it relates to a policy shift on the international cyber front? Is it true the U.S. now is going on the offensive?
So you bet. So let me reference back, just real quick story. I was involved after the DNC hacks that happened in 2016. We got very specific authorities that I cannot go into, but we did get those authorities to make sure that in 2018, some of those things did not happen. I think anybody who's around, and you can go back and check Virus Total, intelligence agencies aren't in the habit of telling people what they know. And in 2018, we were partnering with other countries, as well as the FBI and Facebook, to actually bring a light to some of that darkness that was out there. And we started releasing different malware that we found and showed how they were doing, the bad guys were doing this stuff, specifically a lot of Russians. In this next election in 2020, and what led up to the November elections, we were utilizing a lot of those authorities, and it was really forward defense to make sure that other countries, such as, and we started seeing Iran, China, and several others started getting in to try and use a lot of social media to get people to pivot their opinions and how they were going to vote. We've seen it happen in other countries, and we wanted to make sure that it did not happen here. And yes, Hunter, there were a few authorities that enabled us to be a little more proactive with some of these countries.
Great stuff. Thanks for sharing that. Hey, Monty, a little bit about Horizon 3. What are you guys up to?
So Horizon 3, we are a data company that is very cybersecurity focused right now. What we do is we leverage our AI and automation to be able to create a data model for what is actually happening inside your enterprise. Here recently, and I tell you what, Arun, what he just brought up a little bit ago about identity, absolutely nailed it. What we're seeing, no kidding, in the absolute by double is that weak and default credentials are still so prevalent throughout the enterprises. And the FBI just released a report on credential stuffing. CrowdStrike has shown a massive pivot from malware-based attacks to non-malware-based attacks. And what we're seeing is that a lot of this is very true as we go out and we try to help customers show this is what matters. You need to fix this in your enterprise. From our data models, we're showing where those weaker default credentials have absolutely been used to be able to compromise somebody. And we then make recommendations for, hey, this is how you can start fixing what matters and start securing your enterprise, because it is pretty disturbing what's going on out there.
Great stuff. And what's unique about what you have at Horizon 3?
So one of the unique things, it's amazing how much, if I just talk about credentials for a second, people are scanning them from the outside and they'll look at a web-based application. When we start talking about looking at data files on the inside or how you create an attack path, that's one of the real unique things about Horizon 3 is that we show from our capability all the way through how that attack path was created and how we leveraged different vulnerabilities to get after something. Because I think as anybody who's done some of the offensive stuff before, what you do is you combine a lot of lows to then create a high vulnerability. So a CVSS score of 9.7, that might matter, but if it's not exploitable or accessible, it really doesn't. So one of the cool things about what we do is we give context. Every new operation paints the scoring based on the context of their environment. And it's pretty cool to see watch play out in the AI and the data model. And I'd highly encourage anybody to give it a shot when they get a chance.
Excellent. Thanks, Monty. Hey, Arun, back to you. We met up in Detroit some time ago in person. You've been part of the Digital Summit series here at HMG. Why do you want to come out and speak today in St. Louis? What was on your mind?
Good memories of St. Louis. I played the American Bridge Nationals about a decade ago. Lovely city, great people. I spent 3 or 4 days. But also, I think the notion of being an ambassador for security, especially in a summit like yours, which is today at least classically targeted to CIOs. I know CISOs are coming in. It's really a good opportunity for me to build some relationships and show the convergence of what I truly believe the CIOs and CISOs need to work together. And each opportunity I get like this, thanks to your kind invitation, I'm happy to take, because we're in the cyber battle together, right? And there's the lines are blurring. It's all about enterprise risk management and the ability to work together, CIO, CISO, check our badges at the door, and walk the tightrope between value protection and value creation. Because, oh boy, with the way things change and the pace of change, it's not an easy task at any time. So,
hey, thank you, Arun, for that comment. What do you think it is about the role of the CISO and the CIO and the C-suite that's sometimes a little strained?
Well, I think Part of it is company culture, right? Each company is different, the culture is different. So I think the most important thing is, irrespective of the company culture, it's like what I personally believe, and you've seen the way you've known me for some time now, you've got to work with everybody one relationship at a time. And it's never more apropos than the relationship between the CIO and the CISO, because there are some first principles I would submit, some more from Arun. The first is, building and maintaining a trusted partnership between the CIO, CISO, and other executives like the general counsel and so on, for privacy and so on. And really fostering mutual support and collaboration, because we have to work together. You have to execute priorities effectively based on a culture of respect and trust, right? And then, of course, utilizing constant communication and relationship management to minimize conflict. It's hard to do today, but one of the things always, you go to lunches with people, have coffee with them, and just talk. I think it's really important. And last but not the least, I think with the CIO, along with this a layered security architecture and the principle that Rebecca mentioned, security and privacy by design, I always talk about the CISO trifecta: identity, integration, and insights. The ability to enact the layered security architecture powered by identity to have real-time insights, and then work with the CISO and the IT team to mitigate.
Excellent. Thanks, Arun. Great job. Hey, Rebecca, what about in terms of culture and the role of the CIO in the C-suite with the CISO? Your thoughts there?
Well, I just say as a CISO or CISO, whichever way you want to pronounce it, and Chief Privacy Officer, you have to be a belly-to-belly person, and you have to get out there and find out what people are really thinking. I think one of the things is a lot of times people like to try and stay only with the CIO or CTO, and that's not going to who's going to tell you what really is going on. So people a lot of times will find me in a lot of meetings. I go to a lot of different meetings. I have a lot of chats with people, because they're the ones who are your eyes and ears on what's really going on. But the core to remember, people, it's not only being documented, it has to be known, it has to be implemented, and you have to be able to measure it and manage it to make sure it's getting the success rate that you need. And that takes people. So you have to be a people person. You have to be strong on technology, and there is a shift to get away from people who are only strategic. But then you also have to be able to, someone's going to think with the business and see where the business is going, so you can be an enabler of the business. So the one thing I say, it's a good time for CISOs, but you have to be very, very broad and very deep in many, many different areas. And the one thing I tell people, if you aspire to be a CISO, don't aspire to be a CISO. Aspire to be the best security professional you can be. And if that leads you to a leadership role to be CISO, great. If it leads you to something else, great. We're in a cyber war. They just have to be successful one time. We have to be successful all the time. So be the best practitioner in the role that you have, that you can be, and great things will happen for you.
Hey, Rebecca, thanks for your continued engagement, support of the HMG platform, and being here today. We'll circle back to you again in the future, get you out there and speak again. Monti, closing comments, best time ever to be a tech professional, and thoughts on how to get something started with Horizon 3.
Thank you, Hunter. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. I agree with both Arun and Rebecca. It's a great time to be in this business. And just because it's so cool that instead of just carrying out some guidance from above and being expected to make sure that the company is compliant, they're actually seeking your advice and your vision for how you can tie the business in and make security an engine for your company. So absolutely love it that we're getting the opportunity to have that voice heard and put a company on our backs a little bit in that respect. Future things for Horizon 3, if you go to horizon3.ai, you can actually link into our portal, run through a free trial. We made that available so anybody can do it from their home and even do a free trial in their enterprise environment from corporate. So it's available. If anybody wants, they can reach out to me directly and I'll even walk you through it, but pretty self-intuitive and kind of cool.
What's your email? How can we get in touch with you?
Monti at horizon3.ai.
Awesome. Hey, Horizon 3 really is a top pick, a very cool company. I suggest you all take a look at it. I want to thank Lisa Nichols, all the advisory board members, the conference chairs, this panel here. The panel on quantum was amazing, on data was amazing, right? What a great conference. the folks from MasterCard, George and Aarti, and they were fantastic. This was the best St. Louis Summit we put together in 7 years. I think Lisa would probably agree to that. I want to invite August Policio out to the stage. August leads, amongst other things, including social media, our recognition program. August, welcome out.
Hey, thanks everybody for sticking right to the end of the program to help us celebrate our Global Technology Executives Who Matter award recipients. First, I'd like to welcome Bhavani Amirthalingam to the stage. Hi, Bhavani, so great to see you again.
Good to see you too. Thank you for having me here, August.
Of course. Bhavani is the Senior Vice President, Chief Digital Information Officer at Ameren. As Senior Vice President, she brings depth of experience as a customer-centric innovator, delivering a differentiated customer and co-worker experience, leveraging emerging technologies and driving operational excellence at scale. Every day, Ameren is working hard to provide more reliable energy, reduce outages, and restore power faster than ever before. It's all part of an ongoing commitment to keep pace with the future energy needs. Bhavani credits a strong team as being fundamental to success. Here we have a short clip showing her digital leadership team. She thanks the team for working together to power the quality of life. Bhavani was one of the first technology executives to partner with our digital pivot here at HMG, helping us host one of our very first inaugural virtual briefings on HMG Live. Bhavani, thank you for everything you've done and congratulations on receiving this award.
Thank you, August. My honor. And, I've loved the partnership and engagement of the HMG group in our community here. And, you guys are doing great work and in helping just bring the technology and the business talent, together here in the region and just even across the country. So I commend the work and just glad to be able to, engage and be part of this neat organization that we have here.
Hey, Bhavani, great to see you. And again, thank you very much and congratulations. You're a great supporter, both regionally and nationally and globally, and looking forward to connecting again soon.
Thank you. Thanks, Hunter.
Take care.
See you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Bhavani. Congratulations. Next, I'd welcome onto the screen Lisa Nichols and Greg Nichols.
Hey, August.
Hey, Lisa. Hi, Greg. How are you today? Great job, Lisa.
Thank you. Well, great job to everyone, right? This definitely takes a village to pull these off. But I agree with you, Hunter. I do think this may be one of our best ones.
So everybody, Lisa Nichols and Greg Nichols, they founded Technology Partners. Lisa is the CEO, Greg is the president, they're co-founders. They started in 1994, driven by their passion to revolutionize the staffing industry with their transparent business model. Lisa and Greg have made it their priority from day one to create mutual wins for their employees, clients, and communities in which Technology Partners operates. Just to offer some perspective on how influential Lisa has been, she's currently CEO of the third largest woman-owned organization in St. Louis. So that's a pretty interesting statistic. And one of the most interesting recent passion projects kickstarted at Technology Partners for me has been their podcast, Something Extra, where Lisa interviews leaders from around the world, share their stories and show us what it takes to influence, encourage, and be a true leader in our daily lives. And actually a December 2019 episode even featured Ameren's Bhavani Amirthalingam, a very recent recipient of the Global Technology Executives Who Matter Award. Lisa and Greg, your partnership with HMG has been invaluable over the years. I'm going to turn it over to Hunter now to reflect on the great events like this that you've always been a crucial part of.
Yeah, it's been very special, Lisa and Greg, to be working and collaborating with you both in St. Louis and around the country, many other markets. I can remember Boston, or no, I'm sorry, Chicago. I can remember, I believe, Dallas and others. But you guys always just really blow me away in terms of how you look at the world and think about people, and how thoughtful you are in terms of how you partner and team with us. I think with you, likely with your team at the company, as well as individual thought leaders in our industry. So I'm really proud to be aligned and working with you guys. And I think the sky's the limit where we want to take this.
Certainly. Well, thank you so much, Hunter. It's good to see you. What an awesome event today. We really appreciate our partnership with you. We also appreciate your commitment to growing IT leadership in our city. Very grateful for your whole team, and thank you for this recognition.
Great job.
Ditto that. So Hunter, just thank you. And I feel like you guys, seriously, over 7 years, 8, 9 years that we've been associated with you guys are like family now. So it's not, and it's been really fun to partner with you guys and just elevate, the technology thought leadership in St. Louis. Like I said before, it is such a joy for me even to showcase the amazing companies that we have here and the amazing leaders. We have some of the best leaders, I think, in the country. So just thank you for making it fun and making it easy to do that.
And Lisa and Greg and everyone else on the digital podcast here, I would say we've done, I think Nikki said, close to 100 summits since we went digital back in March this year. And this, without a doubt, was in the top 5 or 10 by far in terms of content, thought leadership, engagement, and a real clear message.
Very good.
Great job.
Yes.
Thanks guys.
To everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. Be safe.
Congratulations.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Enjoy the Thanksgiving too. Bye now.
Yes. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Bye now.